Hi and welcome to this course on how you can create a Minecraft-like environment within Unreal Engine 4. It's going to be a very awesome tutorial, and it's going to be a great tutorial for anyone who's new to game development and want to create something that looks like this. I'm going to be using 3D Studio Max and also Unreal Engine 4 to create my environment. You can use any other software that you'd like to use, such as Unity, Blender, or GIMP, but that would result in your project being a bit different compared to mine. Let's get started. So what we're going to do now is to go ahead and open up 3D Studio Max, which I've already done. And before we start going ahead and creating something in here, I want to go ahead and show you a bit of what we're going to be doing in 3D Studio Max. So what we want to do now is to create a block that looks something like this. And that's really simple. It's a box or a square or a block. And the way we do that is really simple. But what we need to think about now is how this is going to be used. So if you can look at this box or block right here, you have a top texture and a side texture and a bottom texture. And you can see that the top texture right here is actually different from the one on the side. So we need to keep that in mind whilst we're creating the box. If you look at the reference image here, you can see that the same thing applies to the TNT, with the TNT written on the side and a fuse on the top. Same thing goes for the spruce wood and the rest of your blocks, such as the bookcase right there. All right, so let's begin and work on this. What you want to do now is to go ahead and go to the Create tab, go to Box, and we want to drag out a box in our scene. I'm gonna go up to the Modify tab, and I'm gonna go ahead and change the length, width, and height to 100. And I'm then going to go ahead and center the box into the scene. I can do that by right-clicking on these arrows down below here. The reason why we're using the value of 100 here in the length, width, and height is because Unreal Engine 4 uses base 10 in its grid system. Of course, you can change this, so this block could be whatever size you'd like it to be. You could even go ahead and use something like 16 on the length, width, and height, but I'm going to use 100 to make it easier for ourselves. Now keep in mind here, the texture we're going to be using is 16 by 16 pixels. It's a really small texture, so if you really would want this to be the perfect way and perfect size and all that, in terms of texel density and just keeping the box and the texture both in the right size, this box should probably be having a length and width and height of 16, 32, 64, 228, and so on. So we're going to be using 100 in this example, and that should work perfectly fine. Now I'm going to right click and go to Convert To, and go to Editable Poly. Now we can do a couple of more changes to our box. I'm going to go up to the name up here and name this to Block instead of Box. What I'm then going to do is to go ahead and see how this block would look with textures on it. So I'm going to press M on the keyboard to open the material editor, and I'm going to drag in two standard materials. I'm going to be showing you why. So if I go to the place where I saved my Minecraft textures, I'm just going to drag in the grass top and the grass side. Now you should be able to find these online or find something similar. If you own Minecraft, you can probably data mine them from the game itself. What I'm now going to do is to go ahead and name this to grass and this to grass material. This is going to be grass side material, and this is going to be just grass side. There we go. You do not have to name your materials or your bitmaps. They could stay, they could work without having a name, so you don't have to do that. I'm just going to do it for this example to be a bit more clear on how things work and a bit on how we're going to be using this. Right, we're going to now go ahead and drag this onto our box, and nothing really happened. So we want to go down and double click on the grass bitmap and press the Show Shaded Material in Viewport. And that's going to be showing the material onto our viewport here. Looks quite nice, to be honest. Looks really nice, yeah. Gonna go back to the material editor. I'm gonna drag out the second one on top of here, and the same thing applies for this one. And as you can see already, we have a block that looks great. It has the grass side texture pointing upwards. So there's nothing really wrong with that. And the bottom looks fine and everything looks really good. Good on here. But if it doesn't look good for you, what you can do is to go ahead and go to the modifier list, go down to Uvw Map. And what you then want to do is to go ahead and check the box. And that should conform the Uvw map to this box, and you should be given this type of result. If that still doesn't work, you can go ahead and change the length, width, and height and try to align it with the fit. You can also change the alignment like so. I'm gonna go ahead and actually collapse this down. So we have this onto our box or block, and we are almost good to go. Everything looks good, and we can now export this to Unreal Engine 4. But before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and actually show you a way of how we can handle the materials on the engine. So if you want to have multiple materials on the same model in Unreal Engine 4 and easily change between them, we want to make some changes within our 3D modeling application for that to be possible. So we want to essentially add multiple elements in Unreal Engine 4 that we can use to color or change the textures on the box or block. So I'm going to be pressing M on the keyboard again to open the material editor. And in here, you want to go to the materials, general, and drag in a multi-sub-object material. You're going to drag this to 1 and this to 2. And I'm then going to name this to multi-sub-object material. I'm then going to set the numbers to 2 because we only have 2 textures. So we only have 2 materials or textures. That's good. I'm going to drag this onto the box. And as you can see right now, we have a bit of a weird little situation here. So this part here of the box is all green. And this part right here is all the side textures. So to fix that, we want to go ahead and just click on the box, go to element, select the entire box. You can do that by just dragging and marking the box or pressing Ctrl A on the keyboard. Go down to smoothing groups to clear them all off. And under polygon material IDs, we want to set this to 1. And that is going to set the standard material that we have on the top part of our multi-sub object to be shown on the model here. What we then want to do is to select the model again, go down to the Modify tab, go ahead and select the Polygon tool, and select the rest of the sides, like so. And you want to scroll down until you find the material IDs again. I'm going to set this to 2. Now we should have the top looking good and the sides as well. You might notice that this is kind of blurry within the 3D modeling viewport, but you should not worry about that because that has something to do with the nitrous drivers within 3D Studio Max. And I made a video on how you can change this. If you look for blurry textures within 3D Studio Max, you can find a video on how you can make this not looking blurry, but that will come to some kind of cost in the end. So do not worry though, because this will not look as blurry when we're actually done and working with it within Unreal Engine 4. I'm going to press M on the keyboard again, and what I want to do now is actually to add maybe even one more side here. So we have the top to be the first texture, the grass to be the second texture, and add a third one so that we can have a second bottom texture. And by changing the set numbers here again, you'll add a material to the slot. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Just going to make it a bit more tidy. And what we're going to do here is to name this to grass bottom. And I'm going to use the same texture here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold down Shift and drag this down, and we'll get a copy of that texture. I'm just going to name this to grass bottom. Drag it onto here, and we want to drag it onto the diffuse color, and we should be good to go. All right, nice. So I can drag this onto here again. And let's go ahead and check now. So the top side here is 1. I'm going to select all the sides. These are 2. And the bottom is 2 as well. So let's change this to number 3. And the reason why it's looking gray is because I have not set this to be shaded in the material viewport. So just do that. And, oh, hang on a second. Oh, we show the, we can do the bottom one here. Same thing goes for the materials. You can also go ahead and change the show shaded material in viewport on these instead of these if you want to do that as well. Right, we're good, we're looking good. So what we now want to do is to go ahead and create a light map for our model here. So we can do that by going into Unwrap UVW. Let's just close this down for the moment. What we then want to do is to go down to the channels down here and select channel 2. And we can go ahead and move or abandon. It doesn't really matter in this case. Go to move. I'm going to maximize this to my viewports. And I'm then going to press Ctrl A on the keyboard to open, to select all the textures within the block. Go to mapping, flatten mapping, and press OK. So now we'll be left with these different blocks within here. What we now want to do in order for this to look good within the engine is to align these blocks so that they look good on this grid right here. I'm going to select them all by pressing Ctrl A and go down to here under Arrange Element. And if we press these, we can actually align our elements within the scene quite nicely. Yeah, let's go for padding number 2, and I could actually go ahead and just move them around a bit more to, no, to make this easy, let's go here, Arrange Elements, go padding 2, and then just press the pack normalize. And this is going to be good for us. I'm going to close this down and go ahead and collapse this to our block. And we're good. I'm going to go ahead and save this now. Click on our block. What I want to do is to go ahead and export this out. So I'm going to go to 3ds Max symbol. Go down to export. Export selected because we have this selected. Go ahead and find a place to export this to. I'm going to go to the YouTube folder I have. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and just name this to block. It's going to be saved as an FBX. I'm going to save this and go to in here, and that's going to be fine. Okay, the standard settings should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this now, and I'm going to go ahead and go into Unreal Engine 4. Unreal Engine 4. There we go. I'm going to open the Epic Games launcher. Awesome. Let's go to Library, and let's go ahead and launch the engine. What we now want to do is to go ahead and press the New Project button. Go until we find the third person. And in here, we want to select no starter content, maximum quality, desktop and console. And I'm going to just name this to Minecraft Project and then create project. If you want to use something else, such as a 2D template or a side scroller, that could be perfectly fine. I'm going to use the 3D template in order to have a good base for creating the environment. It's just going to be compiling the shaders. It should take a couple of minutes or two. So here we are. If your viewport doesn't look the same as mine, it could be because I have some of the toolbars on a second monitor. Do not worry about these. We'll talk about them and bring them in here when needed. As of right now, I don't think we really need any of them, except for the content browser, for example. So what we now want to do is to go ahead and import the important things. So I'm going to go to the content folder and create a new folder, and let's name this Minecraft Project. In here, I'm going to go ahead and create 2 folders, and we're going to name one to textures, and a second one to models in this case, or static models or blocks or whatever you want to call them. In here, I'm just going to go ahead and drag in a couple of textures onto the textures folder. There we go. And in the models category, we're going to go ahead and import our main asset, which will be the block, which I saved in here. And in here we can do a lot of different things. We can auto-generate collision, which we want to do in this case. We can go down here and we can find some interesting things. Generate light map UVs. We made our own light map, so we don't have to use this one in here. So I'm going to actually go ahead and untick that. And we can also go ahead and see if we can change something else. Yes, we manually import the materials now, so we don't have to import the textures or the materials. So we can just go ahead and press import material and textures and toggle that off. And that should be good. Let's go ahead and import the model. And here we are. Awesome. If I drag it into the scene, this is what it should be looking like. And that's pretty good. We're not going to be using the modes too much right now, so I'm going to go ahead and move this to my second monitor. And the content browser is not going to be so important soon, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that as well. I'm going to make a third folder now and name this to maps. So we're going to have our levels within here. So go to File, New Level, and we're going to use a... Let's go for the default level here, and we can save the current level that we're at. Here we are. I'm going to go ahead and remove this block right here and keep the things that we have in here as it is. If I now press play, I should be the character able to jump around and all that stuff. Good, good, good. I'm going to go back to the player start here. And we're now ready to actually start placing the blocks within our scene. So let me go to modes and go to the block here. And as you can see, it automatically fits within the grid. You can see that we have a position to the grid that is snapping to 10, and we can set it to 100, which will make sure that every block is going to be snapped to this specific grid that we have. Pretty nifty, pretty nifty. I'm gonna press G on the keyboard to hide the grid, and we can just quickly look around to see how it looks. Seems to be looking quite nicely. We can now go ahead and add the textures onto the block, and we can do that by just going into textures and dragging them onto the block. So if I select this block here, for example, and dragging the texture to element 0, you can see, whoop, it doesn't really work. It's just showing red and nothing happens. However, if I drag it onto the block itself, it's going to create a material for me, which will be useful and awesome. Now, I mentioned before that this will not be blurry, but it looks kind of blurry to me now. So to fix that, we want to essentially remove the material that we just made, select all the textures you're going to be using, right click, go to Sprite Actions, and apply Paper 2D Texture Settings. That will make these textures crisp and look awesome within the editor. Let me try this again, dragging the grass top on top of our model here, and it looks perfect. Awesome. Now, instead of having these individual materials that we're going to be using, I want to use an instance material to save a bit of space and to be a bit more optimized. So instead of creating that from scratch, I'm going to be using the grass top material that I just created to show you that example. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this one here. And in here, instead of using the texture sample, I'm going to be deleting it and go to here and type in texture. And I'm going to be using the texture sample parameter 2D. I can change the texture here to have a standard texture onto here. So let's use the grass top, drag it onto the base color. And what I then want to do as well is to go ahead and make sure that the metallic and specular values are not set to the standard settings in here, because you can see right now it's having this really nice glow on the box, on the sphere. If I make a box here, you can see that as well. It's having this nice glowing effect to it. If you do not want to have that, you can go ahead and press 1 on the keyboard and then press someplace inside of the editor, and that's going to create a vector node for you. If you drag this onto the metallic value and change it and move it upwards, it's going to change a bit of how the texture look. So you can see here on the side, it's going to be darker or lighter depending on the value here. So it It's 1.5 right now. And that's going to be a bit lighter right there. Same thing goes for the roughness. And in this case, the roughness is what we're going to be looking at first of all. Having the roughness at a 0, it's going to be this really glossy and specular color. Really glossy and specular texture. If you change this to 1, that should not be the problem. It's all good looking now and shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to go ahead and use the second one here on the metallic values just to be sure it's all good and no problems. Nice. Gonna go ahead and press apply and save, and we're good to go. What I can now do is to apply this to our models here, but if we want to change and make many materials quickly, we can use this master material that I just made. Let's name it master material and create a couple of instances of it, because if I do an instance of this, I will get the ability to add my own texture on top of here to replace this one right here. So I could go ahead and use the grass side in this example, and that should be replacing this texture here with the grass side. Just go ahead and save. Let's look at the material instance here again, and let's see here now, that's good. It doesn't really look... Let me go ahead and save everything and save the map as well. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be working right now. This doesn't seem to be working. So why is that? Let's go back to the master material. And in here, we're just gonna go ahead and name this to texture. Let's use the default texture in here and see if that's gonna help. Okay, there we go. Okay, that seems to be working now. So the master material, now we can change this, and it's gonna be changing this accordingly. Nice. What we want to do now is to go ahead and create a couple of textures in here. We want the grass side and top, and probably the dirt for the bottom piece as well. So just make this to M for material, and then grass. We're going to go ahead and create another instance of the master material, and another one as well. So we have M grass, and we have another one here. Material, let's name this grass side. Let's do another one here. Grass. No, let's do dirt. And there we go. So open dirt, and we want to select the texture and replace it and save and close. The material grass, let's do the same thing, but we're going to use the grass texture in here instead. And the master material, no, sorry, the M grass side is going to be using the side texture in here as well. Saving that, and we should now be able to have a side and a bottom texture on here as well. Awesome. Now, to quickly place these blocks around without having to add a single, texture onto them and all that, you can go ahead and define the standard material for your block. So if we go into the models here, double click the block, we can have different types of textures within here. So what I want to do now is to go ahead and replace the element 0, 1, and 2 with the textures accordingly. So textures. A good idea would actually be to make another folder here for the materials. So materials, and go ahead and drag the materials from here into that folder and move. Let's take a look here now. So grass, 0, dirt, bottom, grass side. There we go. Save, close. So if I go back to models now again, I can drag out this single block, and it's going to be looking awesome for us. Now you notice that I did drag out the block, and it doesn't want to align anymore again. I can just go ahead and figure out why by changing the grid snap to this, and it should probably work perfectly fine now. Good. Let's keep on going. 100, and hold down the Alt key on the keyboard to make a couple of copies of these, and just hold down Control to select more of them, Alt again, and move out your grass blocks, and you'll be good to go. What I want to do now as well is to maybe expand a bit on the side here as well. We can go ahead and just do this. Nice. What we can now do is to go ahead and add a tree to the scene. I'm going to move the content browser away so we can have a bit more space on for the viewport here now. Alright, so to create a tree texture, we want to do the same thing. We want to drag out the block to the scene. Probably want to make it look good and be snapped to the ground. And let's place the tree over here. Let's do that. Good. I'm gonna go here to Google and just search for Minecraft tree. And we can find a couple of these. And let's find a standard one here. That one's, well, let's use the standard one here. That one's pretty good. Right, so what we do is to find out how large or how tall this is going to be. I'm going to go for 5 blocks on the height. What I'm going to do is to select all these blocks. Go down to my content browser. Under the materials category, create 2 more master materials. Create 2 more materials. There we go. Gonna name this to wood side, wood top. Wood side, open, and open wood top. And in here we can just take the texture and see if we can find the texture in here. We have log big oak. Let's go ahead and use log oak. Log oak top, and here the wood side is going to be the log oak side. Where can I find that? Log oak. There we go. Save and close. I can now go ahead, while having these selected, change the wood top, which will be the grass, and then this side, and ta-da! We still have a problem now. We want to create a couple of leaves for this tree. So the way we can do that is by just going ahead and copying out different blocks on the side here to convey a feeling of it being a tree more than just a piece of wood that's sticking up right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look here again on how this could be looking. Close this down here. So it's really, really simple in terms of how it looks. So what we want to do now is to create a couple of variants and copies of this. We go. What we now want to do is to go ahead and use these blocks that we have in here now to create the actual leaves for the tree. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my content browser, which I unfortunately closed down. Here we go. And what we want to do here now is to create another material. And we can't use the material instance in this case because this has to be a bit more advanced. So the way we want to do this now is to right click in here, go to material, new material. I'm going to name this master material leaves. Double click to open that. And what we now want to do is to import a couple of leaves into here. So go to textures again and see if we can find any leaves in here. And we cannot. So big leaf oak. leaves oak. That one's going to be good. Just going to be gonna drag this into our textures folder, like so. Gonna apply the paper 2D setting on it, and I'm then gonna drag it into here. No, I'm not gonna do that. In my case, I'm gonna just right click in here and just go texture, go for texture sample. If you want this to be dynamic, you can use the texture parameter sample instead. And in here, just gonna go ahead and select the texture. I'm gonna find it right there. It's gonna be looking something like this right there. If I drag it onto the base color, it's gonna look something like this, which is quite interesting. The reason why it's gray is for us to be able to actually add our own separate colors to this. So if I press the 3 key on the keyboard and somewhere in the editor, we can add a constant 3 vector node in here. And if we then press M, we can add a multiply, and by connecting the A to the color output here and the color down here to this one there, and then go to the multiply node, we can actually go ahead and change a bit of the colors in here. So just double click on the constant vector, just change a bit here. You can see now we have a bit of a red colored leaves, or a bit more red colored leaves, yeah. Now, we can't use a standard material. Well, we can do that, but it's not going to be working and looking so nice. So what we're going to do now is to go to the shading model, to the blend mode, and go to translucent. This will allow us now to use the opacity to make the leaves look a bit more like leaves, like this right here. And instead of having them red, I'm going to actually convert this right here by right clicking on it into a parameter and name this to color leaves. So now we can actually change the color of the leaves on the fly. I'm gonna reset this back to black and we should be good to go. Gonna save and apply as soon as I can. There we go. Close this down. And back in the content browser now, we want to go ahead and go to the materials, find the leaves, right click, create material instance, and name this to leaves. Yeah, let's do M leaves. I noticed that I actually forgot to type M in the beginning of this one here, so let's do that. And this one here as well, M. Awesome, let's go ahead and use the leaves instance. Let's go ahead and actually name this to, okay, I'm going to name this to M leaves instance, so we can use it that way. That's incorrect, sorry. M leaves master material. And in here, this is the one we're going to be using and opening. In here, we're going to go ahead and select color leaves and go in here and we can change the colors, and that's going to be changed on the fly, so we can find a nice green color for the trees. So let's go for something that looks like this right here, for example. Press OK and save and close. In here again, I'm going to drag this onto the block, and as you can see right now, it's changing the block into this nice little color. So what we want to do now is to go ahead and select the blocks in here that is affecting the tree. We can do that by going down here, go to block, and just go up until we find a lot of the blocks that we want to be using. That seemed to be a perfect selection. So let's start with this. I'm going to go here to the elements, and with the content browser, just going to replace the elements one by one until they're all replaced. Awesome, so we have a lot of leaves now, but we're still having a bit of trouble with the inside of here. We still haven't changed a couple of these ones, so let's just go ahead and go in here and change them manually, like so. Select them manually, yay. Yep, and there we go. And I think that should be good enough. I think that's all of them really. So let's do the same thing for these. Close this down. Let's go in here until we find the content browser, which I unfortunately closed again. Sorry for that. Content browser, there we go. And use the mleaves and just drag it onto here and we're good to go. Nice. So to make this a bit more interesting, maybe we can go ahead and change the colors. Maybe go back here again, and I closed the content browser again. Sorry for that. What I'm gonna do now is just do open the material leaves, and just in here we can change the leaves in real time. So finding it and changing it, and manipulating it until we find a nice balance. Something like that's pretty good. Right, so you might look now and yeah, it doesn't look super awesome. The tree doesn't look super nice, and I do agree with you. We could do a bit more work with it to make it look even better. And the way we're going to do that is by revisiting the master leaves master material. And in here we have different ways of changing the blend mode for our leaves. So we can actually go ahead and try a couple of different things. So if we change the multiply here into the emissive color instead, we can see how that's going to be looking instead. So if I go in here now and press apply, it's going to affect the leaves in here. All right, that doesn't look too good. It's just, it feels like it's missing shadows now. So let's go back in here again. And let's go ahead and change. Okay, well, let's try to go ahead and change the blend mode here to maybe masked and see if that's looking better. And instead of using the opacity now, we need to use the opacity mask instead. Okay, press apply and see how this is going to be looking. Just give me a second. Okay, so that looks maybe a bit better, maybe a bit worse. It's hard to tell. So let's go in here and let's go and use a constant in here to just reduce the metallic and the roughness to make them look a bit better. Okay, so this will probably change and make the texture in here look a bit better. Okay, that actually looks a bit better. It looks a bit more continuous. Now the grass and the tree itself. This is the final material setup for this. Okay, good. What we can now do is to go ahead and maybe add in some plants to the scene. Now, plants in Minecraft is added in a bit differently compared to, you know, it's a plane. It's a single model, to be honest. So the way we're going to be doing that is quite simple. We want to go back to 3D Studio Max, press the green G on the keyboard, and what we're going to be doing here is to add a plane, which will be having one length segment and one width segment, 100 in the length and width. I'm going to rotate this around 90 degrees, and then make a copy by holding down Shift and rotating it again 90 degrees. And that's it. What I now want to do is to go ahead and right click on one of these, convert to, and go to convert to editable poly, go down to attach, and attach these together. And then I'm going to go to the hierarchy, effect pivot only, and I'm going to drag this down to the bottom of this model here. So we have a set center bottom pivot for this specific mesh. I'm going to disable effect pivot only, and now I can now move it up and I can now move it up back onto here. Now, to be able to snap things like this in the grid or in the scene, you need to have snaps on available. I made a video about how you can use this and use the snapping constraints to snap things to different parts of your scene. What I want to do is to go ahead and press Control S to save this. Go up here, and I'm going to name this to plant. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Modify tab. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and now go to the element mode, select the model, make sure everything is set to 1 and that there is no polygon smoothing groups. I'm going to go ahead and deselect this, select it again, press M on the keyboard, and I'm going to be dragging on the standard material or the multi-sub-object material onto here, and that should be enough. I'm now going to go ahead and export this out. So export selected, and save it as plant. And very good. Let's save this scene here again. Save and save. Back in our world right here, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the place where I saved my plant. In the content browser here, I'm going to drag it in to the models category. Drag and drop. Let's see here now. We did not really create any light map UVs for this type of texture. So what we're going to do now is to go ahead and generate that light map for us. And that seems to be good for this in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and save all, drag it out to the scene, and we should have this nifty little little block here. I'm going to go ahead and press 100 and just go down to 50, drag it down. And all right, so what we can see now is that we have a block which will not really appear if it's viewed from the behind. So we need to fix that, and we need to apply a texture that will look like a plant on this. So how do we do that? Well, we go into our Minecraft textures, and in here, environment, I think I saved vegetation in here. Yeah. So I'm going to use the rose and the fern. And let's use the grass small and grass tall as well. I'm going to go ahead and open the content browser again. Going to open this thing here. Go to textures, and in here I'm going to drag in my textures. Right click, sprite action, apply paper 2D settings. Now with these ones in here, I'm going to go ahead and create another material. And this time it's going to be another master material. Make a copy of the master material instead. Let's do that. Make a copy of the master material. Just name this to plants instead. Plants. There we go. It's the plants. Open it up. In here, let's make this one here now to a texture parameter 2D. This is going to go here, and this is going to go into there, and this is going to go here. And I think that should be enough for this. Apply. And almost enough. Let's go ahead and select two-sided as well. Apply. And save. All right. So what we're going to do now is to go ahead and apply this onto our, to create an instance of this. Material inst, plant, drag it onto here, double click on it, texture. We're going to go ahead and find the grass small, and color is going to be something of a green color, I think. Should be nice. All right, so the problem we're facing right now is that even though we added the texture parameter values of the small grass, it's not giving us the small grass, it's giving us something else. So let me save, close, save all, close this project down, reopen it, and see if it's changing anything. Here we are, go to maps, open the map, and in here it's not changing, it's still the same. So go to plants materials. Right, let's go to here and let's change this to texture, and let's go ahead and use the default small grass for the moment. Apply and save. There we go. And as you can see right now, this is how it looks, and it looks the same all the way around. Awesome. So let me just go ahead and tidy this up a bit by changing the colors here to a bit more of a correct green color, I should say. You know, a bit warmer green color. There we go. That's a bit better. Save. And you know what? We can actually go ahead and make duplicates out of this. So we can go ahead and find, open the content browser here again. And what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and use the plant multiple times. So we're going to re-import this and then make a duplicate, duplicate, and duplicate. And I'm going to open all of these now. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and replace all the existing textures within here to the ones I'm going to be using. So to make those textures, we're going to go to material. We're going to go to the plant material in here, which I made. And we're going to go to the instance material of that one. And sorry, we're going to go to the master material for the plant and create three more instances, sorry. So there we go. Just master instance, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. There we go. And I'm going to open these up like so. And in a second, I'm going to bring the monitor back here. Okay, so with the master material plant 1, we're going to use this, another green color in here like so. That's pretty good. I go to texture, go to grass small and grass tall instead. Save. And we're close. We're done with that one. This one here. Go to color leaves, textures. We're going to use the rose in here. And we don't have to use any colors for this. So just going to keep it the way it is. And lastly, we have the fern, which we're going to go ahead and add as well. Which should be there. And this should be a green color. So let's try to use something like this right there. Awesome. Save and close. And in here now at the plants, we're going to use the first one here. We're going to use let's go for the rose first of all. For the second one, we're going to go for the grass tall. Fourth one is going to be the fern, and the fifth one is going to be the actual small grass. I'm going to go ahead and save these all. Save all and save. And in here now we have these different plants we can drag out and place in the scene. Now, instead of doing that manually, we can actually paint this in with a bit of randomization. So the way we do that is by using the modes. And I'm going to go ahead and actually pluck this into here and give us a bit of space. So foliage is what we want to select in here. Add a foliage type. And you can drop the foliage in there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop all the models there into here. And you don't want to select them all. And then you have a brush which you can paint and use to paint the flowers in here, which I just did, which will look something like this. Control Z to remove them. Let's make the brush size a bit smaller, something like this maybe. And let's change the density down to like 0.2. What we can then do is to go ahead and start painting in here now, and we can easily see how awesome it can be. It's still a bit too dense in my opinion, so let's go down to something like this. And okay, I think I understand. Let's increase this actually. Nope, that's not good. Let's go ahead and change it to 0. That should be nothing. Let's go to 5. 0.5. Okay, so you can click in here just to add a bit of flowers in here. Now, if you want to change or remove some of these, you can just use the select tool. You can select different pieces of the foliage. I'm going to do that on the corners here, which are a bit on the outside, like so. And I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't like the colors of the tall grass, so we can fix that by going into the tall grass itself, like so, and go to the material, and we can just find the material that we have in the scene right now and replace that with this. So let me just go ahead and see if we can find. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the materials and find these two and just make sure they're all the same. So this one here is the one that I like the best. So let's go to sRGB on the hex value. Here, here, and replace this with this. Choo. Now they should be the same, and they should be looking better in the viewport. And the furnace the way it is, and the flower here is fine, it seems. Good. Okay, so you might think, well, this is not really good still. And that's because the lighting is not done properly. So the way you want to do that is by going ahead and importing a volume that is called a post-process volume. Just going to drag and drop it into the scene. And to make sure that we can select and work with lights a bit more tidier, I'm going to go ahead and mark the block from 89 down to the first block. And actually, no, you know what? Let's create a folder in here. Name this to blocks, and just select all the blocks like so. Drag it in here, and we are good. A bit cleaner now in this in the viewport. No, so press G on the keyboard to open the viewport up again. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and select the post-process volume. And we need to increase this to be able to work with it better. So I'm going to make it really big so we can actually have an easy time working with it. Great. So with that done, we're going to go back to the light source, and we can actually go ahead and rotate this to get a bit of a different light. So where is the light going to come from? How intense is it going to be? How is the color going to look? So we can even make it, you know, into this little red or orange color to just add a bit more of a soft tone to it. Same thing goes if you want to make it, you know, colder to the blue channel. And let's go for this right. No, let's go for this right here. Okay, so we still have a couple of harsh shadows you see here. It's almost invisible, sorry, not invisible, but really, really dark here. So to fix that, we can use something that's called a skylight. And the skylight is great, and the way you use this is to increase the intensity. There we go. It was static, so I couldn't really see anything. There we go. So just increase it to like, maybe go for 3. And that's going to add, you know, this really nice all-around color for this scene. What you can then do is to go ahead and use something like the post-process volume, and in here you can change a lot of things when it comes to the graphical settings. So what we can do in here now is to go ahead and select the white balance, the temperature, and we can increase the temperature to make it a bit more warmer again. We can go to the global, go to saturation. We can even change the saturation of the image, so we can make it really green, or, you know, this is really yellow, greenish color. I'm going to keep this at 1. And that goes for all the things in here, so you can change a lot of the colors. I'm going to go down here until we find something that's called shadows. So we can change the way of how the shadow should be displayed. And let's go for the contrast in here. And you can see now how the shadows, which are the dark colors within the image, are being targeted by changing the red colors in here. Now, I'm not going to do anything with that as well, just going to leave it be. And go down until we find, let's see here. Let's go for the lens effects and rendering features. Right, in here I'm going to go ahead and look at the global illuminance ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is really interesting, and also the ambient hue map. The ambient occlusion will add a bit more darkness to specific areas, such as the bottom of the plants here. So you can see how the radius is changing depending on how I want to set it up. I'm gonna keep this as 200, and this is going to be down like to 0.5. Let's actually go for a bit higher value here. Let's go for 0.8, sorry. Let's go back here again, and I go to depth of field. We can have a depth of field. That's going to be like Gaussian blur and all those nice things in the scene we can use. Nothing of interest. Let's ignore that. And this looks pretty good, to be honest. If I press play now, I should be able to spawn within the world. someplace. I probably am spawning within the tree or something like that. So let's just move the player out of the position here and play. And there we go. I'm now in the scene. I can, you know, get in contact with everything in here, and it just looks really cool. Really cool. You can still jump around and all that good stuff. So what we want to do now is to do one final thing, and that's to bake the lighting, to make the lighting look a bit more prettier than it is right now. I'm gonna press escape, and in here now I can go ahead and try to press the build button to build our lighting. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and press the build options menu, or go to the build options menu, go down to lighting quality, go to production, and now I'm going to build. I believe we are going to end up with a pretty bad result, but let's wait and see. Okay, it's going to be compiling the shaders again. Let's see how this looks. As far as I'm concerned, this is looking pretty good, actually. Yeah, this is actually quite a nice result. You can see that we have a bit of an interesting thing happening right here. At the bottom of the plants right there, you can see we get a bit of a, like an edge, sort of. But I do actually like that, and I think that's had to do with the ambient occlusion a bit. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this result. So what you can do now is to expand on this a bit more, maybe add a bit of blocks like this. Funnily enough, it's adding the it's adding the foliage on top of this one here. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's go here and just do this and play, and we can now probably just jump around on these blocks and have a bit of fun. Oh, and there we go. Right, this is going to be the video for how you can use and create a Minecraft environment within Unreal Engine 4 in a really short amount of time. It's a really fun challenge for you to probably try yourself, and I hope this was interesting and helpful. This is not by far the quickest way or the best way of doing this. It's one way of doing it, and I'd recommend that you actually make larger blocks with and retain the textile density if you're going to use like these sort of type of environment. Okay, I hope you enjoy. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.